The words we have waited over a year to say. Kyle Busch has a new sponsor. Of course, sponsorship is what caused this whole saga. For those who do not know, you probably do, but just a refresher. At the end of 2021, it was announced that Mars would not be renewing with Joe Gibbs Racing. They would be leaving the team. So that left a big gap in Joe Gibbs Racing's schedule for Kyle Busch in terms of sponsorship. M&M, Skittles, Snickers, Pedigree. I'm probably missing something else, but basically Mars was filling up almost all the schedule for Joe Gibbs Racing and Kyle Busch, the 18 car, probably 26 to 30 races of the year, and then they had interstate batteries. They throw DeWalt on the car every once in a while, something like that. Basically, though, that was the majority of their schedule gone, so they had to find a new sponsor. Well, turns out they could not find a full sponsor or a big sponsor to back Kyle Busch, help pay the bills, basically, and help pay Kyle Busch a contract. So Kyle Busch opted to leave Joe Gibbs Racing and go to Richard Childress Racing. The majority of his sponsors that he has so far have been previous sponsors of RCR. They were on the 8 car last year. BetMGM, Alsco, Lenovo, 3Chi. I'm probably missing a couple, but a few sponsors that were with RCR last year with Tyler Reddick decided that they were going to stay with RCR and sponsor the 8 car still with Kyle Busch in the car. Well, Kyle Busch has a new sponsor now to add to that list, something that was not previously an RCR sponsor. It hasn't been in NASCAR before, actually. It is called Netspend. It is, according to the press release here, a leading provider of payments and financial solutions for consumers and businesses. Did a little bit of research online, something to do with like prepaid cards and stuff, like debit cards, something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but basically there's some type of financial company. And then you got the car here, some blue, some orange, a little tiny bit of red in the logo there. But yeah, so a new look for Kyle Busch, obviously, a new look for RCR, kind of a bright car. Not bad looking. We'll do a paint scheme review in a couple weeks. This one will probably make it. But yeah, so this car will be raced at multiple races, a few races, but COTA being the most notable because this company is based in Austin, Texas, which of course is where COTA is. But yeah, he's got a new sponsor now, and I'm sure there are going to be people out there saying, oh, look at that. RCR found a sponsor for Kyle Busch when Joe Gibbs couldn't. They weren't trying. They wanted to kick Kyle Busch out for Ty Gibbs. This was all part of Joe Gibbs' plan. Hold on. Because, sure, they didn't get a sponsor for Kyle Busch, and now Ty Gibbs is in that car. That was their next best option. But you also have to look at the difference that in terms of sponsorship. Joe Gibbs Racing needed, 26 to 30 races of sponsorship. They had the majority of their schedule open now because they had lost Mars. Whereas this is just going to be a handful of races. I don't know how many races. It could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 7. I don't know. But it's not going to be the majority of the schedule like Mars and M&M's and all of them were. And that gap had to be filled. This is just filling a small gap. So it works for RCR. It works for a small gap. It works for, their schedule. They can work around it. And if they didn't, then they could just ask their other sponsors, hey, could you add an extra race? And they probably would say yes. Or worst case scenario, they go to Chevy. And Chevy sponsors the car for a couple races. Whereas with Kyle Busch, Toyota, Joe Gibbs Racing, it'd be a little bit more difficult to go to Toyota and say, hey, we can't find a sponsor for our biggest name and our biggest success. Can Toyota sponsor him for 30 races? It's a much different situation, I think, in my opinion, that you can't really compare the two. Like, yes, they got a new sponsor for Kyle Busch, good for them. And Joe Gibbs Racing could have theoretically done that. They could have got a bunch of small deals done, a bunch of small sponsors done, but they wanted a big sponsor, I think. They were looking at Oracle, but the Oracle deal fell through, and they went to F1 for Red Bull. So, yeah, it's quite the interesting story, though. They got a new sponsor. As I said already, they've got their sponsors from last year. transferring over to this year. Cheddar's is one of them. I didn't mention that one earlier, but a lot of sponsors coming back from last year from RCR, from the 8 team, that are going to continue on with Kyle Busch. Just because it's a new driver, they said, oh, well, it's still RCR. They like working with RCR, so yeah, Kyle Busch, new sponsor. Other sponsorship news, I think RFK got a new sponsor that they're going to run the Daytona 500. A-Shock is no longer with Elliott. There's probably something else in there I'm missing. This was a big one, though, because, Kyle Busch sponsor, that's been a big topic over the last year and a half or so. So, yeah. Nothing else. I don't know what Reddick sponsors are going to be. Speaking of the former driver of the 8 when he's at 2311, I think they're going to bring back some sponsors. Jordan, Monster, maybe. Monster might go to Gibbs. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you feel informed. And I'll see you in the next video. Kyle Busch actually is on the track in the 8 car for the first time today. They're doing a tire test at COTA, I think. It's closed to the public, but kind of interesting.